Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into fascinating sources to bring you the insights you need to be truly well-informed. Have you ever paused to consider how we capture ourselves, like how we document the story of who we are? In a world, just awash with selfies, social media timelines, endless visual updates. What if someone deliberately chose not to use photographs to archive their becoming?
Yeah.
What would that radical choice actually look like? And, well, what would it reveal about identity itself?
It's a truly captivating question, isn't it? We've become so deeply conditioned to the visual archive, to seeing identity unfold in pictures.
Right.
Today, we're taking a really profound deep dive into the powerful insights of Dr. Jaime Hoerricks. She's written extensively about her intentional refusal to document her journey, her becoming, through photographs.
That's right. Our main source material today is from her compelling Substack, which is aptly titled Why You Won't Find Selfies Here and What You'll Find Instead. We've got a rich stack of her reflections, personal stories, and academic critiques.
A lot to dig into.
Definitely. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack why this choice is so profoundly significant. What does it mean personally and as a powerful political statement? And maybe most importantly, what incredible, maybe surprising insights will you discover in her meticulously crafted archive of words instead? Get ready to, challenge some assumptions about self-documentation and identity.
Get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this fascinating decision. At its core, Dr. Hoerricks explains that for her, the camera's static frame it could never hold the shifting vibrations of my gender.
Right.
She found that a frozen smile, or a staged pose, only deepened this painful misalignment between who she knew herself to be inside and what was outwardly seen or, captured. It's not just a personal preference, is it?
Absolutely not. What's really illuminating here is how she frames this choice. It's not an absence, she says, but a deliberate portrait of refusal.
A portrait of refusal. I like that.
Yeah. She keenly observes the pervasive expectation, especially you see in online trans communities, for those before and after timelines, that visual narrative of transformation.
Oh, definitely.
But for Dr. Hoerricks, this deliberate absence of images isn't a lack. It's a powerful affirmative statement. It's really an invitation to engage with and understand her evolving self, her becoming, through the nuance and depth that, maybe only words can really provide. It kind of forces us to ask, what are we truly capturing when we snap a photo? And what are we implicitly maybe erasing by demanding that static visual narrative?
That's a profound challenge to our visual-first culture, and she lets us into some incredibly intimate moments that really highlight this internal experience.
Yeah.
She describes standing in front of the mirror, in the quiet privacy of her home, playfully experimenting with clothes she's dyed herself, pulling on a bra that almost fits, even if the straps strain against her broad, powerful shoulders. Shoulders that, as she vividly puts it, at my age could still square off against the largest men in the NFL and not be found wanting. There's this tangible sense of joy, playfulness, even radiance she finds in these private, uncaptured moments.
And this brings us to a really fascinating paradox she explores.
Okay.
So in these private moments, her body already registers as feminine, right?
Yeah.
Which is a deep source of personal joy and affirmation for her.
Right.
However, she understands that publicly, that very undeniable attractiveness can tragically draw an unwanted and often harmful gaze.
Ah, okay.
So what she does is quite a genius.
Yeah.
She stitches what she calls armor. These are deliberately chosen, often androgynous tunics that skim rather than cling, designed to disguise as much as they reveal.
Armor.
Yeah. So what she intentionally holds back from public view isn't a deficit. It's not something missing. It's an act of crucial self-protection.
It sounds like a really stark arithmetic of her days, as she calls it. The joy of presentation held against the dread of confrontation.
Exactly. And she explains herself further as being hyper-empathic, meaning she's intensely tuned to every little shift in the atmosphere around her.
Okay.
But she's also alexithymic, which, for those who might not know, means she often struggles to identify and describe her own emotions until they've already become overwhelming, until they've consumed her.
Wow, that combination.
It's incredibly insightful, right? And it really clarifies why she needs this armor. Being hyperempathic means she's constantly processing external cues, making her acutely aware of potential threats. While alexithymia means those internal alarms might not register consciously until the emotional impact is already, huge. This unique neurodivergent profile leaves her particularly vulnerable to what she calls the wrong kind of attention.
Right, the harmful gaze she mentioned.
Exactly. And while she's physically capable of defense, she emphatically states she doesn't wish to live clenched, waiting for the next blow.
Understand.
Her private treasures, those moments of authentic joy and self-realization, they're simply too precious to risk on streets that have not learned to see without harm. This isn't just a personal choice. It's a powerful explanation of the very real personal cost of visibility for many people.
Yeah.
And the intentional crafting of public self-presentation as a vital strategy for safety. It forces you to consider how much energy we all expend, consciously or unconsciously, in self-presentation for protection.
That's a really good point. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, I think, showing how these personal choices kind of ripple outwards. She shares this memorable story about a student lingering after class, and their eyes are drawn to a tunic. Dr. Hoerricks was wearing a beautiful, stormy sky blue, she says, dyed by her own hands.
Oh, nice.
And suddenly, this unexpected conversation just ignites, not just about color or fabric, but about, and this is the quote, how one clothes a body the market does not know exists.
Wow. What's so beautiful about that anecdote is how it seamlessly bridges the deeply personal with these broader systemic issues, right?
So,
It demonstrates how a simple act of craft, like dyeing a tunic, can become this profound response to the market's fundamental inability, or maybe unwillingness, to cater to the huge diversity of human bodies and identities.
not just about what fits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about what is imagined and what is valued.
Exactly. So this encounter then led to an invitation for her to speak to an art class, which sounds like a unique opportunity.
Yeah.
She arrived not just as an academic, but as this living canvas of her philosophy. She wore a heathered purple tunic, sand-colored gauzy trousers, size 15 trainers branded men's, and a mane of Gaelic curls.
Quite the image, even without a photo.
Right. And her voice, described as Spanish-inflected, indigenous-rooted English, with a contralto dusk shading into a tenor's brightness and a Gaelic lilt. It immediately captivated the students. It's clear her very presence was a statement.
Her presence, her voice, her clothing, they collectively told a story that just transcended simple, predefined categories. So when asked, "Where are you from?" her answer is never simple. Her voice alone was an act of translation, carrying an entire landscape and history within its sounds.
Wow.
She explained to the students the fundamental reason she makes her own clothes. No designer holds me in mind when sketching a pattern. She needs fabric wide enough for 34 F-curves stretched across a 50-inch chest, and seams are never cut for stone-born shoulders or rowers' arms.
It's not about vanity at all.
No, it's about basic functionality and, frankly, respect for her body's reality.
And that explanation, delivered in that art class context, apparently completely recast the teacher's lesson for those students.
Oh, so?
Well, what might have been seen as just quaint craft suddenly became living necessity. They began to grasp how dye and stitch can become survival, and how the work of their hands might one day carry the weight of a body the market does not account for. It shifted their whole perspective on what art and design really mean.
Precisely. She unveiled a powerful truth for them, articulating, this is what you are really learning to do. Make space where none exists, clothe a body that refuses erasure, imagine what fashion has failed to imagine.
That's huge.
And the students, trying to reconcile her presence with their preconceived notions, they struggled to categorize her. They saw her as feminine but not delicate, lesbian but not in the cliches, tomboy but carrying curves undeniable. She stood before them, in her words, as the woman it cannot imagine, and in my very being I undo its categories. This isn't just visible self-definition, it's a profound, embodied act of challenging the very foundations of how society labels and limits identity.
Okay, so we've explored this personal journey, the self-expression through refusing photos, but Dr. Hoerricks makes it really clear. Her choice to create an archive of words, not images, is far more than personal. It is a profoundly political statement.
Right.
How does that connect to the broader world, particularly the digital one we all inhabit now?
Well, if we zoom out to the bigger picture, she directly links her refusal to the dangerous and, frankly, increasingly prevalent trend of online doxing and the actions of online mobs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
She explicitly references figures like Charlie Kirk and his Professor Watch list, highlighting how easily personal information, especially images, can be weaponized. For her, every selfie that might bring a moment of joy also carries this immense risk of being stripped of its original context, distorted, and turned into evidence for their fantasies of corruption.
Chilling.
It is. So this refusal isn't just about privacy. It becomes a critical act of survival, denying them an album to plunder or a timeline to distort for, nefarious purposes.
That's a chilling but incredibly real assessment of the digital landscape we're in. And it speaks to the very nature of how different mediums work, doesn't it? She highlights how her words, unlike static images, resist their frames. They
Exactly.
move too slowly, too complexly to be contained in the shallow economy of their rage.
Exactly. Words demand engagement. They demand context and time to be fully understood. They inherently resist that kind of instant decontextualized consumption that makes images so vulnerable to manipulation.
Right.
And this refusal to provide visual fodder for the shallow economy of rage, as she puts it, runs even deeper for her. It connects to her experience as an AuDHD Gestalt Language Processor, or GLP.
Okay, can you unpack AuDHD and GLP a bit?
Sure. So AuDHD refers to individuals who are both autistic and have ADHD, often experiencing the world and processing information in unique ways. And a Gestalt Language Processor, or GLP, acquires language differently, not necessarily word by word, building up sentences,
Okay.
but often in chunks or gestalts, entire phrases or sentences learned as single units. This means their communication can be less linear, more holistic, and sometimes feel like it arises in, as she says, constellations,
Yeah.
rather than easy step-by-step sound bites.
So the very structure of her thought and language challenges conventional expectations.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And within that, she speaks to this immense pressure to script yourself for the comfort of others, particularly to present a neat before and after story.
Which is such a common expectation, especially around transitions.
Exactly. She explicitly rejects what she calls the MTF storyboard of transition,
Yeah.
that often reductive male to female, caterpillar to butterfly narrative.
Yeah, you see that everywhere.
Right. And this simplified framing is often presented for cisgender approval, making the trans experience seem palatable and easily digestible, but it rarely captures the true complexity. Dr. Hoerricks asserts powerfully, "I was not a man becoming a woman. I have always been trans. Trans is origin and trans is destination, both at once."
Wow. Trans is origin and destination.
Yeah. She describes this experience as less linear than quantum. For her, declining their prepackaged frame isn't an act of shame. It is quite literally an act of sovereignty over her own narrative and identity.
Sovereignty, that's a powerful word choice.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this powerful declaration shows how her politics and her neurology kind of converge in this fundamental refusal of a forced script.
Yeah.
What's also fascinating is how she notes that hormone replacement therapy, HRT, played a role not just in physical changes, but in giving her access to her authentic voice and the very fluency of her words, solidifying language itself as the truer record of her becoming.
So language becomes the primary medium. Okay, so if you dive into her Substack, given all this, you definitely won't find selfies or those linear visual timelines. What will you discover? What's in this rich textual archive she's building? What's the real substance?
You'll discover an incredible journey of the long work of making sense of the AuDHD and GLP experience, written from her unique dual perspective. She lives these realities.
Right.
And she teaches Gestalt language processors within educational systems that are often, well, not designed for them. Her critiques aren't just abstract academic points. They grow directly from her lived contradictions, her daily classroom experiences, and her deep academic engagement.
That's the power of it, isn't it? It's grounded in lived experience. She's not just sharing personal stories. She's meticulously dissecting research. With her PhD, she leverages university libraries, following citations back to their origins, unmasking what she astutely calls advocacy dressed up as scholarship, or advertisement masquerading as science. That's some serious critical work.
It absolutely is critical work.
Yeah.
She systematically pushes back against the subtle assumptions buried deep within research methodologies,
Yeah.
the inherent bias and diagnostic criteria, and what she terms the quiet violence of presenting theory as fact.
The quiet violence.
And she's very transparent about the intellectual tools she uses. She outlines the deliberate frameworks grounding her analysis. There's the power-threat-meaning framework, which fundamentally shifts the clinical question from what is wrong with you to what happened to you and how are you making meaning of it. A really powerful reframe for understanding trauma and experience.
That changes everything.
It does. She also leverages critical theory for tracing power dynamics, the Marxist canon, for understanding how capital and empire influence healthcare and identity, and Glasser's choice theory to ground her autism writing in the concept of agency, even when facing significant constraints. These aren't just academic buzzwords. They're the lenses through which she reveals deeper truths.
And it's not all dense academic prose either, which I really appreciate. She also turns to poetry and short fiction sometimes.
Yes, to speak sideways when analysis alone is not enough, allowing these creative forms to carry emotional truths and lived experiences that, simply resist purely logical dissection. It's a beautiful complement to her academic rigor.
It sounds like it adds another layer of depth.
It truly does. Ultimately, what you'll find in her Substack is this vibrant constellation of thought, where, as she says, the center is language, its gaps, its echoes, its refusal to hold us neatly. It's a rich, multi-layered tapestry of critique, profound care, and a radical act of self-definition through the very act of writing. It really asks us to consider how much we miss when we only seek those quick visual answers.
Dr. Hoerricks profoundly articulates that what she truly wants you to see cannot be held in pixels. It can only be lived through the writing, through the teaching, through the becoming that is always in motion. That's quite a statement about the fluidity of identity.
It really is. And, to punctuate her entire philosophy, there's this poignant yet utterly rare exception to her general refusal of photographs.
Oh, an exception.
Yeah. She shares the story of Walt, an analog photographer in Altadena. Walt, with his remarkable patience and belief in photography as a deliberate craft, not just a quick snapshot, he captured a portrait of her.
Yeah.
And it was, in her words, not distortion, not disguise, but as me. She actually wept when she saw it.
Wow.
Which is just a testament to the profound rarity of truly being seen without prejudgment, especially for her. And Dr. Hoerricks is an author of a book called Forensic Photoshop. She knows intimately well what an image can and perhaps more often cannot truly hold about a person.
That one powerful image, then, captured in this rare moment of deep trust and authentic connection, it beautifully contrasts with the hundreds of eyes online just waiting to strip context from a casual selfie.
Exactly.
Her words, her self-made garments, her unique voice, her sheer presence, they truly offer portraits of another kind. Ones that invite genuine understanding rather than, superficial judgment.
So what does this deep dive leave you to ponder? In a world so saturated with easily consumable, often manipulative images, what forms of self-documentation do you think truly capture our authentic selves beyond just the immediate visual?
Good question.
How does refusing easy categorization become an act of profound self-definition, maybe even sovereignty? And what vital lessons can we all learn from those who choose to live and share their becoming on their own complex, unflattened, and ultimately truthful terms?
Fantastic, thought-provoking questions to chew on long after this deep dive ends. And just a quick practical note from Dr. Hoerricks. Her name is pronounced J-A-M-E, and her pronouns are she/they. Thank you for joining us on this incredibly insightful deep dive into Beyond the Frame, Finding Self in Words.